Hi there, I'm Nathan Agan. Welcome to the Working Actors Journey Rehearsal Room. This is a series we started in June 2020, almost 5 years later, that came out of what we could do with all the time during the pandemic. We found that having the time to deeply explore just one scene over a month has really excited everybody involved. And for those familiar with John Barton's Playing Shakespeare series with the Royal Shakespeare Company, I see this as kind of a springboard off of that. We are, unlike them, unscripted, totally unplanned. It's a wonderful way to see the creative process in real time. And for those who are watching this and you're totally brand new to this, what you're going to see through the weeks is not meant to be finished or final. This is rather just a continuation, a continued work in progress. It's the next step. Obviously, if we were to get all these artists together and start blocking the play, things would change, dynamics would change, ideas would change. And so this is just, wherever you're watching it, wherever we are in that process. This is an opportunity for artists of different generations and backgrounds to collaborate, learn from one another, and to wax philosophical for a moment or wax poetic. It's to continue the lineage of honing this craft by doing. Many of the artists here have done extensive repertory theater and regional theater, and though that is not as prominent these days, many of these artists, can attest to it's a great training ground. So we want to try to capture some of that as we do this, and just people can learn from each other and get ideas and really spend some time with these characters and see what evolves. The rehearsal room also continues the great theatrical history of apprenticeship to some degree, where newer and younger artists, not only those in the room but those watching, get to see up close how professionals work after 30 plus years. The questions to ask, how to explore, how to communicate, how to take direction. And what I've loved is it's never been a top-down structure here. Great ideas and questions come from all directions, and everyone has been so welcoming of that dynamic. We can also explore different casting in here, being more conscious to gender, age, or race than theaters sometimes feel they can be. You will see that today, that there are, just because somebody is a certain age, younger or older than a part may be called for, it doesn't matter. It's all about the text and exploring it. And as you will hear shortly, we can bring together artists from all over the place. Sometimes it's people that haven't worked together for 20 years or more, and that's really exciting, getting people to reconnect after many years with this great material. And this project, I will say just a little bit about it. I'm very excited to have started with Annie and Randall talking about what this might be, and we've kind of, they've been calling it the Hamlet Project, which I think is very fitting because it is a project, and we'll see how far we get with this project. And those of you joining us today will kind of help us figure out, how far we take this. So we have grand visions and ideas and plans, but it's going to see boots on the ground what it's actually like to do. So those who are watching later, you can support the project through Patreon. All the sessions are on YouTube for free. There's also a podcast version, and subscribe and do all that stuff. Support us if you can. And a quick thank you to some of our patrons: Joan, Michelle, Jim, Magdalene, Ivar, Claudia, Cliff, and Jeff. And that is it for my little mini spiel as a producer. I'm going to ask everybody just do a quick round of introductions. Since you haven't heard enough from me, I'll go first, and again, keep it very short. So I studied theater in Los Angeles at University of Southern California. Did a lot of theater there, some independent film and TV stuff work. Worked with the Antilles Company for a number of years, which was kind of a quasi master's degree. I felt in theater and classical theater, and working with some wonderful actors and artists, and kind of gave me the genesis for starting the podcast and then this series. Mostly I do audiobook work, hence this, and produce these wonderful sessions. So that's it. I'm in very Northern California, almost near Oregon, close to the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, for those who've been there or know that part of the country. So that's it from me. I really think it needs to be. And I will turn it over to, how about I go to Annie, and then we'll just go around the room.
Probably.
Be very brief. I can tell you that I am an acting coach, a director, and an actress, and I have spent close to 60 years being in love with classical plays and with a particular emphasis on Shakespeare. I had the great fortune to work with Randy 50 years ago on this play. We did our first production 50 years ago, and then since then we were able to do 3 full productions and then work with actors on scenes and monologues about the play. I'm a co-founder of the American Players Theater in Spring Green, Wisconsin. And I think for the most part, that's what pertains to this experiment of ours. Randy, you want to take it from there?
Well, I was 18 years old when I saw my first productions of Oedipus Rex and Hamlet, and it altered my life. It set me on my path. Then I had the good fortune of seeing Morris Karnofsky do Shylock at the San Diego Shakespeare Festival, and he set my path for the kind of acting that I wanted to learn to do. And so I've spent my life traveling my path. With Annie and third of our partners, Chuck Bright, who's no longer with us, we founded the American Players Theater, hoping to have a classical center, a center for the classics, in training actors, in producing the plays, and performing the plays, and doing the plays uncut, using the best translations if they were foreign classics, and placed in a period that was suitable to tell the stories. That's about it. That's been my life's work, trying to live up or trying to measure up to what the plays demand of an actor, and to wrestle with what the playwright's vision might be, how to embody it, and how to deliver it to the audience in as exciting a way as is possible for an actor to do. So that's been my work thus far.
Wonderful.
So I pass it on to Lee Ernst.
Good, it's good.
Yes. All right.
Yes.
Yes, I am Lee Ernst, and my first encounter with Hamlet was when my wife Sandy and I, before we were a thing, nearly, I think it was about 45 years ago, went to see a production of Hamlet at the Guthrie, and that featured Randy as Hamlet. That was a turning point in my life and in my career, and has really been the torch I've been chasing my entire life. So, in addition to that, I'm currently a resident company member in my 12th year with the Resident Ensemble Players here in Newark, Delaware. Prior to that, I spent 20 years as a company member with Milwaukee Repertory Theater. And prior to that, I was company member with American Players Theater. And that relationship actually stretched into roughly 20 seasons as well. So, with that said, I'm excited to do this. Just finished doing my first Shakespeare in a few years. And boy, it is a contact sport. You got to be ready. So, I hope we are.
Good.
I hope I am.
Why don't we hear from Sandy next?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Sandy Ernst. Yeah, I'll be very brief. Randy and Annie gave me, I did a 4-year directing apprenticeship with Randy and Annie starting in 1981 at American Players Theater. And thanks to them, that's kind of what I've done since then. Lee and I are lucky. Well, we also made it our mission really to work together all these years. So we worked together at American Players, then at Milwaukee Rep, where I'm stage manager primarily and associate artistic director. And now that's what I am here at in Newark, Delaware. I also teach actually starting, Annie, when I talk to you about, I'm going to be teaching auditioning for the professional theater starting in the fall. So finding something a little bit different. And like Lee said, it was about 47 years ago, I saw my first Hamlet on stage, which was Randy. And then the last time I think I saw a Hamlet was one that I got to direct my son Ben in about, was that 8 years ago now? Something like that? Yeah.
8 or 9.
Okay. So
Whoa.
that's enough for me. I'll go to my son. I'll go to Benjamin.
Spoiler alert, Lee and Sandy are my parents. Well, I wasn't prepared to talk about this. Yeah, so I was sort of born into this. I was 3 years old when American Players Theater started, and we moved there. I don't really remember much from that, but at 5, the third season, I was put on stage. And so I don't have a memory of being introduced to this stuff because it was just part of my life before I could remember. You know, so saw Randy's uncut Hamlet, saw Lee play the second season, do a few performances of that uncut Hamlet. Hamlet to me was the role that if you didn't play, you weren't a real actor. And I know that's not true, but that was just the way I looked at it. You know, I was steeped in a lot of the history of it. And it just seemed like every great, at least male actor needed to play Hamlet. Got to see Lee do it a couple more times at Wisconsin Shakes and then that second APT production. I played some small parts of it over and over again. So then my life took me to grad school and to the regional theater world. If it's got the word Shakespeare Festival in it, I probably worked there. If it's got a state and then the word Shakespeare Festival in it, I've probably done at least one season there. I currently teach in the BFA acting program at Colorado Mesa University in Grand Junction. And yeah, and I guess my last Hamlet was doing it about 8 years ago with a very cut version, a very small rehearsal closed production, black box show with Sandy directing. So yeah, the path of my life was very much set by the people in this room, not just my parents, but the other two folks in this room have a big lot to do with everything I am right now.
That's great. Very cool. Larry.
Hi, Larry Peterson. I fell in love with classical language decades ago, and I went to school in London to try and get some early training on that. I went to Lambda, and then when I came back to the city, that's when I met Annie and Randy, and I love their approach to it. And what I have found most important for me is that remembering that words have power. And when you delve deep into yourself and imbue that word with everything that's going on, not only in your mind, but your body, it just makes things come alive. And the good classical writing, especially like Shakespeare, with very few exceptions, you just don't find that in modern day playwrights. Most of the acting that I do now is for film and TV, but I have found that with studying with Annie and Randy and a few other people, I have found that my core center about the love of classical language and how words have power can make you overcome bad writing and actually deliver a good, solid, very human-like performance. And I'm happy to be a part of this and explore again the wonderful world of Shakespeare.
Excellent. Wonderful.
Nick, huh?
Yeah, and Nick, yes, please.
Hi, I'm Nick. I met Randy and Annie in 2018 at Centenary University, my alma mater. They took me under their wing after I graduated and really fostered a love for Shakespeare and other classical theater. Introduced me to Hamlet, fell in love with Hamlet, and I'm happy to be here and explore the text.
And you're about to
Excellent.
play Romeo.
And I'm about to play Romeo in July.
Good.
Fantastic. Wonderful. And we do have, some audience here.
Yeah.
I can see Elizabeth and Liz on the camera. Thank you both for joining us. I think that's everybody in the scene. I think we got or all the artists involved directly. So I will be listening in. I'll pop off camera and like a good producer, retreat to the back of the house and let you guys all just have fun and do your thing and try not to bother you in any way. So that's it. I'll show up towards the end, but please let me know if you have any questions or anything else comes up. All right.
Thank you,
Enjoy.
Nathan. Thank you, Nathan. Nathan, as well, we're a group of Hamlet lovers, obviously, this group. And the idea, I want to thank Nathan for jumping on this experiment. What we'd like to try to do is to see whether or not a group of actors can get together, comb through a play, a text, and arrive at common ground in order to perform it together. And by combing through a scene, I mean, wring it out, finding everything about it and arriving at a common understanding of what's happening in the scene and what's exciting about it. And certainly this first scene in Hamlet is loaded with excitement and opens a most exciting play. So this is the first round. It's four consecutive weeks, 2 hours each week, to cover just this first scene of Shakespeare's first act of Hamlet. The next round will be another 4-week session in which we'll do the second scene in this first act. And then another 4-week session, and we continue till we get to Hamlet's meeting with his father, which concludes Shakespeare's first act. And hopefully that'll be in September when we conclude this. But we start off with the very first scene today.
And this is really the first part of the experiment to see if we want to continue. I mean, and the expectation is not that everybody is going to want to move forward on, or continue, but we're hoping that that does happen. But this is where we'll sort of set the tone for the kind of work we want to do, what we want to explore, and what we're accomplishing by doing it. I think what I'm particularly excited about is that everybody in the room, Larry, I'm not sure of your experience with Hamlet, but I know that with Lee and Ben and Nick and Randy, they're all, each one of them is at a different stage of Hamlet. I said to Lee the other night that he saw Randy's Hamlet at the Guthrie, then he took on Hamlet. Ben was raised at APT, saw Hamlet, and he took on Hamlet. Nick now has been with us and he wants to take on Hamlet. So there's a wonderful generational mix here of people who have had some kind of relationship with Hamlet. Randy and I, and this is where, before we read, I'll just say that we have found that once we took on this project, that it has been endless days of discussing what is that moment about, or how does the ghost, what happens on 'Tis Here, 'Tis Here, what happens there, and coming up with new ideas that we hadn't even thought of before. So what becomes particularly exciting about all of us who worked together before, meeting and dealing with those questions that each one of you probably have from productions that you've been in or have directed or have been a part of. And I think what we're going to find is that a whole new world of this play is going to open up once we engage in that search. We thought the best way to start was just by becoming acquainted with the scene. By the way, let me just say that we also have invited 10 people to join us. And they come with a different perspective of the play as well. And they'll, at some point, we'll have everybody introduce themselves, but they are teachers, they are actors. We have 2 members who are what I feel are golden audience members, because we've worked with them on plays, and the questions they had from an audience perspective, again, opened up research for us that we didn't ever have with the questions actors would be concerned with. So they're here. Down the road, we're hoping that a director by the name of Sandy Robbins, who you probably know, and an acting teacher by the name of Milton Justice will also join us to sit in and have some kind of feedback and be of help in this exploration. But we felt it was important to have that group of people with us from the top, not just do this on our own and then wait for 4 weeks before we bring, an audience in. So that will be happening as well. But at any rate, we thought the best way would be to just jump in and do the first scene, and then we'll open it up to wherever it's going to go. So Lee, I don't have anything more specific than that. Okay, and so let's just see what happens.
So, who's doing what? Shall we just start?
Yeah, I think everybody knows, right? I
Okay.
told everyone, Ben Barnardo, Larry Francisco, Lee Marcellus, you Horatio.
Sounds good. Who's there?
Nay, answer me. Stand and unfold yourself.
Long live the king.
Barnardo,
He.
you come most carefully upon your hour.
Tis now struck 12. Get thee to bed, Francisco.
For this relief, much thanks. 'Tis bitter cold, and I am sick at heart.
Have you had quiet, guard?
Not a mouse stirring.
Well, good night. If you do meet Horatio and Marcellus, the rivals of my watch, bid them make haste.
I think I hear them. Stand! Who's there?
Friends to this ground.
And liegemen to the Dane.
Give you good night.
Oh, farewell, honest soldier, who hath relieved you?
Barnardo has my place. Give you good night.
Hola, Barnardo.
Say, what is Horatio there?
A piece of him.
Welcome, Horatio. Welcome, good Marcellus.
What, has this thing appeared again tonight?
I have seen nothing.
Horatio says 'tis but our fantasy, and will not let belief take hold of him touching this dreaded sight, twice seen of us. Therefore I have entreated him along with us to watch the minutes of this night, that if again this apparition come, he may approve our eyes and speak to it.
Oh, tush, 'twill not appear.
Sit down a while, and let us once again assail your ears that are so fortified against our story, what we 2 nights have seen.
Well, sit we down, and let us hear Barnardo speak of this.
Last night of all, when yon same star that's westward from the pole hath made his course to illume that part of heaven where now it burns, Marcellus and myself, the bell then beating one.
Peace! Break thee off. Look where it comes again.
In the same figure, like the king that's dead.
Thou art a scholar. Speak to it, Horatio.
Looks it not like the king? Mark it, Horatio.
Most like. It harrows me with fear and wonder.
It would be spoke to.
Question it, Horatio.
What art thou that usurps this time of night, together with that fair and warlike form in which the majesty of buried Denmark did sometimes march? By heaven, I charge thee, speak.
It is offended.
See, it stalks away.
Stay, speak. Speak. I charge thee, speak.
'Tis gone, and will not answer.
How now, Horatio? You tremble and look pale. Is not this something more than fantasy? What think you on't?
Oh, my God, I might not this believe without the sensible and true avouch of mine own eyes.
Is it not like the king?
As thou art to thyself. Such was the very armor he had on when the ambitious Norway combated. So frowned he once, when in an angry parle he smote the sledded Polacs on the ice. Oh, 'tis strange.
Thus twice before, and just at this dead hour, with martial stalk has he gone by our watch.
What particular thought to work I know not, but in the gross and scope of my opinion, this bodes some strange eruption to our state.
Good, now sit down, and tell me, he that knows, why this same strict and most observant watch so nightly toils the subject of the land, and why such daily cast of brazen cannon and foreign mart for implements of war? Why such impress of shipwrights, whose sore task does not divide the Sunday from the week? What might be toward that this sweaty haste doth make the night joint laborer with the day? Who is that can inform me?
That can I, at least the whisper goes so. Our last king, whose image even now, but now appeared to us, whereas, as you know, by Fortinbras of Norway, thereto pricked on by a most emulate pride, dared to the combat, in which our valiant Hamlet, for so this side of our known world esteemed him, did slay this Fortinbras, who by a sealed compact, well ratified by law and heraldry, did forfeit with his life all those his lands which he stood seized on to the conqueror, against the which a moiety competent was gaged by our king, which had returned to the inheritance of Fortinbras had he been vanquisher. But as by the same covenant and carriage of the article design, his fell to Hamlet. Now, sir, young Fortinbras, of unimproved metal, hot and full, hath in the skirts of Norway here and there sharked up a list of landless resolutes for food and diet to some enterprise that hath a stomach in it, which is no other, and it doth well appear unto our state, but to recover of us by strong hand and terms compulsative those foresaid lands so by his father lost. And this, I take it, is the main motive of our preparations, and source of this our watch, and the chief head of this post-haste and roamage in the land. But soft, behold, lo, where it comes again. I'll cross it, though it blast me. Stay, illusion! If thou hast any sound, or use of voice, speak to me. If there be any good thing to be done, that may to thee do ease, and grace to me, speak to me. If thou art privy to thy country's fate, which haply foreknowing may avoid, oh, speak. Or, if thou hast abhorred it in thy life, extorted treasure in the womb of earth, for which they say you spirits oft walk in death, speak of it. Stay, and speak. Stop it, Marcellus.
Shall I strike at it with my partisan?
Do, if it will not stand.
'Tis here.
Oh, 'tis here.
'Tis gone. We do it wrong, being so majestical to offer it the show of violence, for it is as the air, invulnerable, and our vain blows malicious mockery.
It was about to speak when the cock crew.
And then it started, like a guilty thing upon a fearful summons. I have heard the cock that is the trumpet of the day doth with his lofty and shrill sounding throat awake the god of day, and at his warning, whether in sea or fire, in earth or air, the extravagant and erring spirit hies to his confine. And if the truth herein, this present object made probation.
It faded on the crowing of the cock. Some says that ever 'gainst that season comes wherein our Saviour's birth is celebrated, the bird of dawning singeth all night long. And then, they say, no spirit can walk abroad. The nights are wholesome. Then no planets strike, no fairy talks, nor witch hath power to charm. So hallowed and so gracious is the time.
So have I heard, and do in part believe it. But look, the morn in russet mantle clad walks o'er the dew of yon high eastern hill. Break we our watch up, and by my advice let us impart what we have seen tonight unto young Hamlet. For upon my life, this spirit dumb to us will speak to him. Do you consent we shall acquaint him with it, as needful in our loves, fitting our duty?
Let's do it, I pray. And I this morning know where we shall find him most conveniently.
Yeah. Good. Okay. What are you going to say, Randy?
Nothing except that
Randy had-
Horatio's damned speech in the middle of the scene is one hell of a challenge for any actor tasked with
Yes.
doing it,
So
but necessary.
it's very necessary, and I think I can show you some reasons for it. I think. But again, one of the things that I want us to be aware of is it's very easy to get caught in the weeds of what's been written about this play from a scholarly point of view that looks at it as literature. I have depended on scholars my whole life that I've studied this play, but I also have learned that there's minutia out there that sounds wonderful when you hear it, but the question that has to be asked is, how do we play it on stage? So you may have wonderful information about ghosts or kings or whatever, but unless it helps the actor bring the play to life, it can sit in a place of just being very, very interesting. Necessary. I don't want to steer you away from it, but I think our task in working on this now is to ask the question about, how do I bring this play to life? What's happened, circumstances, and the action of this piece. For me, I believe that every line in a play gives birth to the next line. There is no Hamlet without who's there. And even when you're engaged in cutting a play, I think it behooves whoever is cutting to know what you're cutting out, so you know how to help the actor make the link. When Randy did Richard III in San Francisco, I was very, very, I didn't mention this in my biography, but I think one of the best trainings that I had was a 10-year apprenticeship of sitting in on every rehearsal and performance of every production that Randy did in these different regional theaters. There's a great lesson in listening. And you notice in schools, we don't teach listening, but I learned how to listen. But I did find Randy would get up and do it, and we would go home and discuss it. And he'd say to me, Annie, I can't get this moment. I can't get this. And I'd look at the text and I said, well, of course, look what was cut out. Your way of getting to that is gone. So he had to do the production. You commit to a production, but at least he knew now how to make some kind of connection to what he had to say, because he knew what was missing. It wasn't perfect, but at least it helped him understand that it wasn't just him being unable to get it. So I think that it's very important to at least look at the whole play to see how one line connects to the other. The other thing that I want to bring out is that we are going to work from the First Folio, and now the heavens fall on Anne. I've heard from scholars left and right that, the First Folio is not the best script. Blah, 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 blah. And look, here's why Randy and I work from the First Folio. We did a production of Hamlet in Hawaii. A woman, former actress, right, Randy, in Hawaii contacted us and said, I have this old book. Maybe you'd like to look at it. We took the book home, and then Randy said, Annie, why is that word capitalized in the middle of a sentence? Or look, this punctuation is different. They have more periods in this modern script than they have. We started to play with it. It's that simple. There's nothing scholarly about it. I didn't write a book about it, but we started to play with it and found that it allowed us to bring life to this play in a way that those texts that were punctuated for grammatical correctness got rid of the rhetorical use of punctuation, how one speaks a line, not how one reads it. And we found that this served us in working on this production. As the years went on, I found a book by, now I can't remember his name, great.
Flatter.
Dr. Flatter.
Right.
And this was a man who had to translate Hamlet from German into English.
No, did he have to translate?
No, yeah, no, but it was a matter of, it was, I'm sorry, from English into German, you're right.
Right,
And
right.
what he found was there were no German words that suited some of the English words. So he had to look at the punctuation. And he found that in his translation, he could find German words that described the situation, where he couldn't just replace an English word with a German word, because one didn't exist. But he found it through the punctuation. So we found information from him. Then Neil Freeman came along. And if those of you who have the applause version, folio versions, he edited those books. But he also wrote a book that deals with the folio and the punctuation. He did a computer study of the punctuation and found consistency in how the punctuation worked in every play. The colon always meant something. The comma always meant something. And this, again, Randy and I came to it with none of that knowledge, but found for some reason that what we had discovered was very similar to what he had discovered when he actually sat down and took on the plays much more specifically. So we've never had a reason to not use the folio. Yes, there are moments where you'll see some very famous speeches are cut out. I think the folio of Hamlet is probably 200 lines shorter than the quarto. And the drama of Eel, the famous drama of Eel speech, is not in the folio.
All occasions.
And how all occasions do inform against me is not in the folio. That's your choice. You want to add it, you can add it. We decided to do the play without that and see what it did. A lot of the Claudius and Laertes stuff is not in the folio, that's in the quarto. But again, when you look at the folio, you can see why it became an acting version of the play, because it really gets to the action of it. So a lot of it is beautiful, a beautiful philosophy and beautiful thoughts and wonderful speeches, but does it further the action? And we felt that even without those speeches, the action was furthered by just following the folio. There are typos in it. Yes, there are grammatical errors, but you know, we're big enough to say, well, that word should be this word because that word makes much more sense. So it's not as if don't touch the folio, you know, you'll be damned if you touch the folio, but it is a text that we feel comes closest to an acting version. And as I've said, on a very simple level, it has served us for 50 years. I've taught it to many people, and I find that even those people who have to look at a text that is punctuated by scholars, find they always go back to the folio, at least to see what hints they can get from it in delivering the lines. That's the reason for the folio. I will take time. Now, I know everybody here has some knowledge of the use of the folio. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
And Randy, should I, here's the big question, should I jump in?
Yeah, refresh our memory.
What?
Refresh our memories about how the punctuation is used rhetorically.
Okay,
Possible.
because there's a wonderful exercise. Some of you done, some of you haven't. And I don't know if we need to get into it today, but if we have difficulty understanding any of the punctuation, it serves as a great example, a living example of how it works. Has everybody here done the hamburger exercise?
No.
I don't think, have you done it, Ben?
I stole it from you. Yeah.
Okay. Lee, have you done it? Yeah. Okay. So, and Larry has done it.
Yes.
Okay. So I don't have to. So let's just then.
But I love it.
So we'll just do a refresher course. Let's start with the comma, Randy, since we both agree that it's a wonderful, and it's probably the punctuation that's used more than any other punctuation.
And it's the least respected or taken stock of. What I'm discovering in working on a piece of Shakespearean text is that the comma indicates the place where the next line is born. So it can help us with spontaneity. the the character spontaneously generating that thought that's to succeed, a thought that's just come out of his mouth and needs to further be, the thought needs to be further elaborated on or added to, you know, but it's in the moment of that comma that it occurs, and it happens quick.
And if you look at it, let me just explain that if you look at it as everything you say before the comma is all you expect to say,
but suddenly
then
this
you add on after the comma.
added thought is created, is born right on the spot. So what it does is enhance the character's spontaneous generation of the lines. How often we go to the theater and it's like watching actors just deliver memorized lines, and we never see how thoughts are born in the moment. And what the comma does is to remind us, no, 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 take stock now. It's happening right there. It's not a memorized line. The whole thought is organically being developed on the spot in front of the audience.
So I'd like a burger and some fries, as opposed to, I'd like a burger and some fries. There's no punctuation in that second one, but the thought occurs to have fries after I've ordered the burger. It sounds simple, but that's how simple it is.
Yeah.
So when I'm speaking a Shakespearean line, it has that same simplicity. I say the first part of it, and then I add on the next part of it. So it actually shows you generating the thought. It gives that whole idea of, as opposed to that idea of giving speech, I memorize this off stage and here it is, you know. So does that make sense to everybody? We can move on from the comma, yeah?
Yeah. So I've been, I don't know, wrestling around with that one because it's exciting to think that a character is generating his speech in the moment, you know, and it's not a prefabricated thing that an actor just delivers, but it's actually occurring right then and there.
And we'll find examples in the text as we move along. So let's look at the colon. The colon is a very active punctuation. What happens with the colon is it's a matter of whatever you say before the colon, you're going to leap off of that to the next line. Mercutio has lots of colons in the Queen Mab speech. And so I've seen Queen Mab, she is the fairy, and this, and this. So it makes sense when Romeo says, peace, peace, Mercutio, thou talkst of nothing. So it doesn't come out with, you know, Mercutio doing his Spanish blades as if it's an aria in itself, and all of the slowing down of Mercutio and all of the Queen Mab. And then Romeo says, peace, peace. Why? Why? He can come in much earlier and say, peace, peace. But Mercutio doesn't give him a moment because he's going on to the next, and this, and this. You spend a day with me and you'll see I'm a master of the colon. You'll never get a word in. So that's the verbal part of the colon. What I found though in the Freeman book is it's also physical. Usually if there's a colon, an actor is making a physical move as well. So you want to take a look at that, and you're going to see that certainly in this first moment in the play. Nay, answer me, stand and unfold yourself. So we can do it verbally to give the command, stand and unfold yourself, or does he move to see where the hell Barnardo is? Choices, we make those, but it has that possibility on stage with the colon. I'm going to show you an example with the ghost in a minute. Okay, so that makes sense to everybody, right? Colon, I can move on. Okay, semicolon is the downshift. What I love about the semicolon is, and I love about the hamburger exercise, is the part of it that says you are going to order a burger, but you put on 10 pounds in the last 2 weeks, and you really know you shouldn't have those fries, but you're going to order it anyway. I'd like a colon and some fries. So the colon shifts down. The colon is actually a wonderful comic punctuation. You look at Groucho Marx, if you had to punctuate Groucho Marx, you'd find, and he comes down here. It downshifts. All right. So when you look at this, the colon, something happens that causes the actor or causes the character to downshift. We'll be looking at this in a moment. Stay, speak, speak. I charge you. Let's go to that one for a moment, just because it's such a perfect example. The Horatio moment. Stay, colon, speak, semicolon, speak, colon. I charge thee, speak. Why does it go from a colon to a semicolon? And that's what we'll be exploring that. But most of the time, I'm telling you, in most productions, you will see say, speak, speak, I charge thee. And they just go shout the whole thing and move forward. The folio is showing you there's some moment in there that's very important, so that it's stay, speak, speak, I charge thee. Something happens, and we'll talk about what that possibility is. But that's the colon. Another place that you'll see it is in Julius Caesar with Cassius. And the only reason I bring it up is I've seen so many Julius Caesars that have Cassius being so manipulative that one wonders why Brutus even stands with him for more than a minute. But there is that use of the colon that doesn't bombard Brutus with what he wants. Cassius is finding a way to smoothly work his way into convincing Brutus to come along with him. So that colon becomes very important. The next punctuation is, well, let me just say question mark.
Semicolon.
But
Semicolon.
That was the semicolon.
Yeah, you called it a colon for the.
I'm sorry, semicolon.
Yeah,
that's why I have him here. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I didn't have him correcting me.
All right.
That's because I use so many colons that they become part of my.
Yeah.
Right. But let's talk about question marks. Hamlet has more question marks than any other Shakespearean play. So if you want to ask why is it gone for so many years, it's because there's so many questions in it. And the problem sometimes with Hamlet is we try to answer the questions. My suggestion is ask them. Because it's the play that, remember, this is the play where he says, I'm going to hold a mirror up to nature. And the only way he can do that is allow each audience member the freedom to wrestle with every question that's put in front of them. It's not about, let's solve it and tell you this is what the play is about. It is asking the audience to be part of it. And when they leave, they will discuss, well, what did that ghost stand for? What was that question? Hamlet will have, what a piece of work is man. You'll see it as an exclamation in modern text. In the folio, it's a question mark. So when you see a question mark, ask the question. It can be rhetorical. So it's not necessarily a question where you need an answer, but there's a question in the character that's provoking it. Okay? Now the period, which I find oftentimes where we misuse. The period is not the end of a sentence unless, again, you're looking at a play as literature. The active use of a period is the point at which I check in with the other character to see how they have responded to what I have just said. So I say, Ben, I love your shirt. And look how he smiles. Now I can move in and borrow $10 because I see I've softened him. You have $10, Ben. I'm in. Okay, that's the period. The period is the place you look at. You're going to see it with Horatio, by the way. Every one of Horatio's questions has a period to the ghost. Will have a period, a finality to it that has to do with him waiting to see if the ghost will respond. Most of the time, those questions are rattled off like, I don't really care whether you're going to answer me or not. These are questions I have to get out. But what's so important is he's interrogating the ghost. And what's even going to become more important about that is those questions he's asking will let him know if this is an evil spirit or a good spirit, a spirit that was sent by heaven to do something good. And that's why he needs the ghost to respond. And the only way the ghost responds is to respond as an evil spirit that hears a cock crow, morning's coming, I have to get back. all of the responses the ghost has are indicative of something that is evil, from what Horatio has learned about ghosts. But he's in armor. And the first time on the Elizabethan stage, a ghost appears in armor. Every play up until this point that had to do with a ghost, the ghost would come back in a shrouding sheet, come screaming from the grave. So the Elizabethan audience for the first time sees a ghost in armor. And they're as shocked as Horatio is. Looks it not like the king? My God, it harrows me with fear and wonder. They can't come to a conclusion about what they're seeing. So for an Elizabethan audience, but again, what I said earlier, I stand by. We need to find a way as actors to make that entrance of the ghost be as frightening to our audience and to the men watching, and it depends on the men watching reaction to it, they're not going to know specifically that a ghost never appeared in armor. I get it, but it's good for you guys to know, to understand what kind of fear Marcellus and Barnardo have to experience, and Horatio. Horatio doesn't just go after it as a ghost. That costume, the fact that it's come back in armor, has meaning. So I know I kind of got off of the period, didn't I? At any rate, those questions that he asks, we'll look at it again, but you'll see that you need to see what the response will be. And if the other actor doesn't respond verbally, then you have to decide how you'll proceed with the next question, rather than just rattling them off as here's a series of questions that I want to ask, or, whatever it is. Observations, right? Those are the punctuations. The other thing you're going to see working here, and then you have the parenthetical. The parenthetical is also an afterthought. The parenthetical is, I'm about to say, later on you'll see in the play, Rosencrantz says, Hamlet, and then parenthetical, my lord, because he realizes he's being too personal with just calling the prince Hamlet. So he has to backtrack and say, my lord. The king of parenthetical is Polonius. He starts to say something, and then he backtracks, and then he moves, and then he backtracks. And then, so what, because he's trying to work out something, and it becomes more convoluted than just having a straight shot at saying what he feels. And we'll see that as we move through the play. I'm just trying to point out places where it's used, and this obviously, Horatio has quite a few of them in his speech, yeah? Okay. Capital letters. Capital letters mean you want to give more emphasis to it. You want to, and if you're doing it technically, hit it to see why would I stress that. If you were sitting next to me, let's say, and there were a bottle of water on a table, and I just accidentally swept around and the water fell off the table, and I would say, bend your shoe. If I wanted to write that in a play, I'd put a capital S on shoe. There's a reason that the stress, it's different than the iambic pentameter. It has to do with not a mouse stirring. So in that case, he's emphasizing how quiet it's been, as opposed to not a mouse stirring. One is casual, the other one is to say, it's been so quiet here, not a mouse stirring. So it gives an intensity, but it's different in each case why that capital is there, and we can hunt them out. I charge thee, Horatio says, that capital C, I charge thee, speak, which leads me now to short spellings and long spellings. What you want to do is pull out a long spelling. You come most carefully upon your hour. Why? Because you scared the hell out of me asking who's there out of the dark. I didn't know what the hell was happening, because you're not supposed to ask who's there. I'm supposed to ask who's there. And here's another thing, guys, and again, I have respect. I want to say this out loud. I've had respect for scholars, but when you look at a text and you look at your Ardens and you look at these texts, and at the bottom it says carefully, and it says he comes exactly at midnight. When was he supposed to come? 1 after 12? He comes at midnight because he's a soldier and that's what you do. How about using what the word means? carefully, full of care. Why do I know that makes sense? Why is he asking who's there? Oh, I see. He saw the ghost 2 nights in a row, and he's seeing somebody who has armor on in the dark. Maybe it's the ghost that he saw 2 nights ago. So he asks, who's there? And the other man responds by saying, you come most carefully upon your hour.
They answer me.
Yes, I know, but I'm saying, I'm looking at the H-O-U-R-E, long spelling.
Okay.
That ends that line. But that elongating something has a stress that pulls that word out. Again, guys, everything I'm offering to you, you have to play with. I can't say to you, I can show you how I would interpret it, but it's all to say, what would you do with it? But it's there. And if you respect that it's there, and I can tell you it has a reason for being there, it's not a printer's error, because you'll see sometimes H-O-U-R appears without the E. And as I said, thank you, Neil Freeman. I think he's passed away, but he's shown us further proof of it. Long spelling, short spelling. Short spelling is Marcellus. Peace, break the off. See the OF? It's not OFF. Why? Perhaps he's seeing a ghost. He can barely get the last word out. So again, you'll see these. The other thing, I'll show you another character. Lady Macbeth is short spellings in her speeches. So she does not present as in a lugubrious princess who speaks beautifully, and she gets to the point, and she gets to it quickly by short spellings. So there's no fussiness in her speaking, in some of her speeches, okay? So that short spelling is a very important punctuation to just see what is it that would stop somebody from completing the full length of a word, all right? But once again, here you are. Here's my plate of food for you. Now you have to decide whether you like the taste or not and what you're going to do with it. Because from this point on, it's an actor, I believe, totally in an actor's imagination and what an actor brings to the piece. So I couldn't even tell you that that's what it is, absolutely. I think it becomes exciting, and I can throw some exciting ideas your way. But I also think as we go through this 4 weeks, we may find stuff that even Randy and I haven't had an opportunity to see in the play. And I think that covers the punctuation, yeah?
Yeah. Why don't we read the first part of the scene?
Sure. Can I throw in a quick thought?
Yes.
Even in the first 6 lines of this, there is so much that is almost topsy-turvy. In a regular guard type situation, Francisco would have the first line, "Who's there?" But it's reversed. Another man coming.
Yep.
And because of either it's pitch black, there's no stars, he can't hear quite correctly. All Francisco knows is there's something coming towards him who spoke, but it's not the right thing to speak. And it's, no, you stand and unfold yourself. And he's still not sure. Is this somebody I know? Barnardo? So it's just me looking at Francisco. There was so much going on just in those first few lines. And
Yes.
he says even later on, it has been deathly quiet. And that's one of the reasons why he's so spooked when he hears this voice coming out of seemingly nowhere. He can't see it.
Yes, I agree with you. And I think one of the things you're bringing up, and I think that becomes very important to me when you said it's kind of chaotic as to the way guards should work, is this is Shakespeare creating a world that everybody's terribly uncomfortable with. We're going to learn through the course of it, and Marcellus is going to ask this. Nobody knows why they're keeping the watch. And nobody says a watchword. One says, friends to this ground. liegeman to the game, you know? And Barnardo, his response is, what's his response to Francisco? Long live the king. Yeah.
That's sorry. Friends to
Long,
this
yeah,
ground and
long live
legion
the
to the
king.
game. Yeah.
Long live the king. So what's the watchword?
Yeah.
There's allegiance to the, but again, nobody knows. And by the way, we're sitting in a kingdom where the rightful king has not been elected. Hamlet is the rightful king, but there's been a switch in it. And you have the man who is king now putting a watch out, but not telling the soldiers why they're watching. So there is chaos in the very beginning. Nobody really knows how to do this right. And the questions they ask, if you look at Barnardo, well, let's read it, Larry. Let's go back. Let's just read the first section again.
Sure.
And then I can even dissect it more and we can talk further about. Shall we change, Randy? This is your, should we change actors? Should we
Oh,
use the
let
same?
the two actors do it again.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we can switch off if we want. I mean,
And we're going to go up until,
till the entry of Horatio and Marcellus.
okay.
Who's there?
Me. Answer me. Stand and unfold yourself.
Long live the king.
Barnardo?
He.
You come most carefully upon your hour.
'Tis now struck 12. Get thee to bed, Francisco.
For this relief, much thanks. 'Tis bitter cold, and I am sick at heart.
Have you had quiet guard?
Not a mouse stirring.
Well, good night. If you do meet Horatio and Marcellus, the rivals of my watch, bid them make haste.
I think I hear them. Stand! Who's there?
Good. Good. Let me point out a couple of things. And this is where I said earlier, every line gives birth to the next line. When Barnardo when you realize that it is Barnardo, you ask that question, right, Barnardo?
Mhm.
Obviously, he didn't get who Barnardo was vocally from who's there,
Right.
right? Something happens before the moment that you recognize Barnardo. Is Barnardo now in his eyesight? It's not simply his voice because he didn't recognize the voice earlier. So that we need to work that out on stage. Then Barnardo dismisses him. Get thee to bed, right? It's time.
Yeah.
Struck 12. Get thee to bed. You're fully waiting for him to just leave. He leaves, but he doesn't leave. He gives new information, and that information is, for this relief, much thanks. 'Tis bitter cold, and I'm sick at heart. Well, I will tell you that bitter cold was a sign of ghosts coming from the grave, not just a seasonal thing. It has to do with the sense of spirits, evil spend. Remember, it's 12, and ghosts leave the grave at 12, not at 1, at 12. When you hear it's cold and he's sick at heart, that causes your next question. Now he's presented you with, wait, did this guy see something? You see what I mean? That's why just let him go. It's provoked the next question out of you. Have you had quiet guard? And there's a capital G on guard, is there?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what does he say? And this is where my wonderful mouse comes, not a mouse stirring. Okay, good. He didn't see, I don't have to worry about him having seen the ghost. It's not in the vicinity. But since you are fearful, if you see Marcellus and Horatio rivals, bid them make haste. I don't want to be here alone. It's cold. I don't want to have to deal with the ghost alone. Make them hurry up and join me, give me company. So now we have where I think I hear them. Stand, who's there? The question you're going to have to answer next is, what happens to Barnardo? if all we're hearing are footsteps or something that says somebody's coming, could it be the ghost again? Remember, Marcellus is going to say, "Holla, Barnardo." Now, holla is only used to call somebody out from hiding, or it's the falcons, the word used for falcons. You call the falcon to you, "Hello." It's not hello. It's not, "Hi, Barnardo, good to see you." Marcellus can't see Barnardo. So what happens to Barnardo when Cisco says, "I think I hear them"? Does he, does he try to hide? Right, right. So then the next thing, of course, will be Francisco will talk to them, and you, Barnardo, will hear them speaking about friends to this ground, liegemen to the Dane. And then Marcellus will call you forth and you'll come out from wherever it was, wherever you've chosen to hide, to step back, whatever it is. Now you'll join it. But now we've seen how line 1, "Who's there?" provokes stand. And then that provokes Bernard. You come most carefully upon your behavior carefully. Your behavior is odd, not you're on time. Behavior is odd. Well, you know what? Just get out of here. It's time to go. It's midnight and you can go. Well, I'm glad you're here because it's freezing cold and I am miserable. Wait, hold on. Was everything okay? Did you hear anything? Was something? Nothing. Absolutely quiet. Okay, good night. He can go. But you know what? Before you go, make sure you send those other guys in here because I don't want to be alone. Okay, he goes off. He hears them. You hear them. Your response has to happen to that. You step back. You have some trepidation. What I'm pointing out here is Barnardo, I think, out of all 3 men, is the most frightened. And he never says anything about ghost mythology. So, and one starts to think perhaps he's the youngest.
That's what I was just thinking. I was like, he sounds like he's the junior guard.
That's right. And, so, and even the way he says, "Who's there?" you get the feeling that, boy, he hasn't learned the rules of this game at all. He's going to say that, right? So, okay.
You know, oh, I was just thinking, you know, I'm just having seen so many productions and, you know, rarely do you see it, you know, even close to uncut, you know, and, you know, the price we pay sometimes to get to do the plays, you know, but I think about this beginning and I'm just thinking about the ways I've seen it staged so often. And I feel like, and even cinematically when it's been filmed where I feel like often you are almost introduced to Francisco, you know, he's standing on stage alone, you know, and it seems like it's more his point of view and the "who's there" scares you, the audience. But it strikes me that in a way you want to be in Barnardo's point of view a little bit, almost as if, I mean, if you were filming it or something where you're seeing the figure of Francisco up there in the mist and you don't know what that is. And the first line is, you know, and I never thought of it like that. And I feel like it's often, I feel like that point is a minor point, but it's also the way you're introduced to what mystery, what side of the mystery are you on? I find that interesting when you really boil down the minutia.
Absolutely. And that's why we're doing this. Because we're going to struggle with things that when all the scholar has in front of him is the lines. And so they come to conclusions based on the line. We have to deal with what's happening between the lines. We have to deal, and as you say, point of view. What's the story? What part of this story is going to enhance the future of the whole story? And how do, you know, now you've opened up a world of how do you stage these moments? All I beg of is that I don't see another Hamlet that is, "Who's there? Nay, answer me. Stand and unfold yourself. Barnardo." And then we have our soldier dance out there, and everybody's saying, "When does Hamlet come on? Come on, I paid good money to see whoever's playing it. Good money." At any rate, I think that's the part that I'm looking for in this is how do we create this world? And by the way, Larry, when you softened vocally, the beginning when you say "stand, who's there," it almost became too big.
Okay.
Once you moved from there, it became real.
Okay.
Barnardo, I think we have to find talking to one. Let's forget about how far away we are from the audience. So we can at least discover talking to one another.
Mhm.
And then, of course, we'll talk about staging and how we can stage and how that will affect sound and, anything like that. But I think it's a great point, Ben. And so here you have the junior guard out there, because the other two people who will talk about ghosts, if you remember, we brought Horatio into this mix because he's a scholar. He studied at Wittenberg. Wittenberg is a school of religion. He has learned about ghosts, and more than anything else, he knows how to speak Latin. That's what scholars had learned. So he can speak Latin. The language of exorcism is Latin. So Horatio comes packed with information about ghosts. Marcellus, and I love Marcellus's speech, he doesn't have that information. But what he does have, he represents those of us in the audience who say, at Christmas time, what I've read, no ghosts come at Christmas because it's just such a wonderful time. So Shakespeare has shown us every point of view. He's played this for the groundlings who don't have the Horatio knowledge. He's played it for the elite and the nobles who might have more. He's played it for the Catholics who have a point of view about ghosts and a point of view about purgatory. And he's played it for the Protestants who have no purgatory whatsoever. But he's done enough in this whole scene to bring us all in and understand that there's no one way to deal with seeing a ghost. He gives us a little taste of what we've all learned about ghost mythology. The thing we can hang our hat on is you probably could count on one hand the number of people who have seen ghosts. You can count probably on less than that the number of people who have seen them in armor. So what we now know is our job is to create something that is fraught with, as Larry says, chaos in the beginning, but also a kind of fear that has to do with, I don't know what's going on. Because that fear, the audience will reflect that same, I don't know what's going on. And that's what will make them want to hear more. And that's why Horatio's speech that Randy loves so much is so important to the play. Okay. Okay. Randall, what else? What else would you like to do?
I have a question.
Yes.
Or a topic. As we're discussing this, you're right. It's like this knot of soldiers that it's like, oh yeah, those guys. But the fact is, there are further distinctions amongst these guys, right? Or between these guys.
Yeah.
Francisco, for instance, he doesn't have the Barnardo Marcellus knowledge. He hasn't seen a ghost. He doesn't know from ghost. His relationship to this moment is unique to the local situation or the situation of the kingdom. And that's a great opportunity, I think, because especially because he is wary, showing some, unguardedness, but it's of a different stripe. So that's a
Yes.
certain elevation of, hey, what's going on? Buh, buh, buh. So that gets our blood up a little bit, but it's not about the ghost for him yet.
That's
Yes.
It's about the ghost when it's about the ghost.
Yes.
And that to me is interesting, and I've kind of forgotten that conveniently.
yeah.
I
Yeah, no,
think,
That
I think maybe Francisco is thrown in a moment, but he immediately becomes a guard. Nay, answer me. Stand and unfold yourself.
Sure, yeah.
But it's just a brief fleeting being caught off guard. It's not a being frazzled by it.
Sure.
Yeah, don't you think? To
Sure.
distinguish it from the guys being frazzled by
Yes, I understand. Yeah.
yeah. So, which is a more intense emotion, I would imagine.
And especially these people, the other thing I think that sometimes is forgotten is that this was not a routine that these men did while the
No.
other king was alive. This is quite new to all of them. And it's
Mhm.
something that they're very unused. So they may be soldiers and they may have read the book, but they still have to deal with this for the first time. And again, they haven't been, I would ask any one of you, if you were keeping guard and you didn't know who it was that was going to attack you, how do you know what I mean? If
Yeah,
you knew
yeah.
the
Get
doorway
up
was
there
coming
and
in
look
or
out.
across, yeah, but you don't. So that even adds another level of trepidation and fear to the whole thing. But it's
It's
The
another
time is out of joint, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
yes,
it,
right.
it's another, I think, good endorsement of, I mean, it's funny, I deal with so many college plays where you're fudging ages, and so you're not trying to make a statement with age most of the time, it's just, I've got who I can, use when it comes to the ages. But it does, it makes me, you think about this watch as a new thing. We don't know what's going on. The idea of Barnardo and even Francisco being, they're junior soldier cadets that are on this thing. I mean, I could see a world in which, and then Marcellus, who seems to be, is he part of this watch, or is he a commander? Is he, that happened to be on patrol the night. I mean, it's just interesting to kind of play with what does that change with the dynamic, in terms of who's in the inner circle when they go to see Hamlet, then later on. I don't know. I find it interesting
Yes.
to really
I
consider.
think you're right.
I
And
think another thing that we American actors miss too is class.
Mm,
Are these guys of a lower class?
Status and
yeah, right.
Because later in the play, Hamlet recognizes Marcellus, but
Yeah.
doesn't recognize Bernardo. It's like
Right.
he's never met Bernardo before. All he says is "Good even, sir."
Yeah.
But he welcome Marcellus. He greets Marcellus. And so, what class is Francisco? Was he just drafted to be a guard or to be part of the watch? You know what I mean? Does he come from a lower class? Does Marcellus have more experience? Is he the warrior type of the group?
I think too,
And how
Right.
did they know Horatio? Why do they?
just realize that Horatio and Marcellus know each other, because Marcellus
Yes.
has to go to Horatio to tell him that maybe there's the age, this is, a connection between the
But
two and
class too.
age-wise. Also the question comes up, because you know that in productions, Horatio is played as a young man who went to college. However, he saw the ghost in that armor when the ghost was alive. Such was the armor he had on when he smote the poets. That was very, very specific information that happened 30 years ago. So how, if he's 17, does he know that? Or how does he describe the ghost to Hamlet so clearly, based on his memory of the old king? And so I think we have, and this is one that I've rarely seen. Horatio is an older man. Now, I can tell you that in Norwegian history, you will find that in times of peace, kings would send older servants, older companions with a young prince to a university. They could go back and study because there was no war. And so finally they had an opportunity to go back. So you can't just say, well, Wittenberg, he was a kid, he had to be 17, or why would he be in college? Then you're looking through it through the prism of only our current way of looking at college. But there's information the play gives you that has to do with something different. That's right. Now I bring up, of course, and we'll get to that maybe if we ever get through the whole play. Is Hamlet 30? Gravedigger tells us he is. So we'll have to deal with that later, though, right? I think you're right. I think you're right, Ben. Excuse me. Age starts to play a part in this. It doesn't.
It's interesting.
Yes, it is. And because I think all of us who have worked on Lear now have found that sometimes it's wonderful actresses have gotten to do the daughters in Lear. Truth be told, it's rarely done with 3 young girls.
Yep.
That
curse never makes any sense.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
So, those choices are made. And at some point, Nathan had also talked about gender casting and such that's going on today. And I've seen some productions now where Polonius is a woman. My question as a woman is, would I talk to my daughter as a woman the way Polonius talks to his daughter? Isn't there something a little different between the way a father talks to a daughter and the way a mother talks to a daughter? Or if King Lear is a woman, well, then why do we have to worry about who's going to inherit the throne? Just give it to the next daughter. So, you know, I understand what we're fighting for out here socially and politically, but I think you have to decide if you want to do the play. And the play has certain requirements that, and if you're wonderful at playing men and you're a woman, great, come on board. But just know that you're making a statement once you change the gender of the character that Shakespeare chose to be a male, particularly if he's a father. So, you know, I know that's controversial and I'll never get hired, but I don't have to work anymore. I'm old. But I think it has to be said, just so people understand, if you're committing to the play, then commit to the play. The other thing I want to say is that the ghost is seen 11 times in this play, and he's seen by 4 different people. All right, he's seen by Barnardo, he's seen by Horatio, he's seen by Marcellus, and he's seen by Hamlet. He's not seen by Gertrude. I can guarantee you this ghost is not a figment of Hamlet's imagination, nor is he.
That he's seen 11 times.
Yes, the 3 times that the men see him, the 2 times that's when you do the math, and the last time that Hamlet sees him in Gertrude's closet, it comes out to 11. A sighting, just 11 sightings by 4 different people.
Oh.
So I did the math, and I know I can just, you know, work it out. I'll show you later. But at any rate, the important part of that numerology lesson is only that we have quite extensive information about this ghost being seen not only by Hamlet, you know, possessed by the ghost or whatever, or the little, sometimes you see Hamlet, the ghost is a little white light, some kind of ethereal thing. But if you're going to do the play, then again, you have to wrestle with that. And part of that is what we said earlier. Each man comes from a different perspective of ghosts. So it's not like, okay, they, you know, all of them drunk the Kool-Aid. You have Barnardo has a point of view about ghosts, which is just totally in the dark. Marcellus, who has a kind of homespun, folkish understanding of ghosts. Horatio has a much more sophisticated religious, theological point of view of ghosts. And then you have Hamlet, who has to not only deal, and Hamlet would have the same information that Horatio would have. They went to the same school, but you have the addition of it having to deal with your dead father. And this is a specter. It is not his dead father. It's an illusion that it looks like his father. It has all the signs of being representative of his father, but he has to deal emotionally with, is it my father or an evil spirit? And then, of course, he has his wonderful speech of oh, all you hosts of heaven or earth, when shall I couple hell? It's terrifying for Hamlet to have to deal with this ghost. It's not just this wonderful, loving, hi, Dad, how are you? Great to see you scene. It's far more about, how do I speak to him? And that Horatio has the same issue with, I'll cross it, though it blast me. He's taking a terrible chance of being condemned if he believes at all that this is an evil spirit, a representative of the devil. And the devil was known, Hamlet will say it in the play, but it's also, once you read some of the Hamlet and Revenge book or Hamlet information that's out there, you will see that this idea of ghosts, the devil would allow spirits that you would have a love for come back and represent someone you love, so they could lure you into doing something evil. So it's fraught with questions about, what is this that I'm dealing with? What, and of course you've noticed that they say it, they call the ghost it, that's the pronoun, not he. They don't, and they won't say, Horatio doesn't say, he says, what art thou? That usurps, steals this time of night.
Object. Thing, apparition, yeah,
So,
Okay, illusion.
illusion, yeah.
Mhm.
yeah. So, okay. So are we ready to take a look at what happens when Marcellus and Horatio come in?
I just
So-
have to say that a lawn crew very inconveniently showed up outside my window 5 minutes ago. They'll be gone in about 3, but
Okay.
can you hear them?
No,
Oh.
No,
Oh, that's good. Maybe we're okay then. All right then.
so
You've been
can we
warned.
pick it up from, I think I hear them.
sure. I think I hear them. Stand. Who's there?
Friends to this ground.
And liegemen to the Dane.
Give you good night.
Oh, farewell, honest soldier. Who hath relieved you?
Okay, hold.
Bernardo, that's my place.
Hold for a sec, because I want to point out one thing to you. Even this is forgive me for the minutia.
It's another shortened line.
But no,
Okay.
here's the thing. Horatio says, friends to this ground. You come in, Lee, and say liegemen to the
Liegemen.
Dane. He is not giving allegiance to Claudius. He's just saying we're friends. Why? He knows Hamlet is the rightful king.
Ah.
And he is not going to give allegiance to Claudius at this moment. Well, again, will the audience know that? No. But I think for us to just keep examining the difference between the two, the one man still has allegiance to the old king and his son, and the others have been forced, as we know so many who have been forced in our own time, to say, I support the king. Ooh, I got chills. Okay, so let's keep going. Sorry, I just wanted to point
All
out,
right.
even those, as we're looking under every stone, even those little things mean something, or can.
Give you good night.
Oh, farewell, honest soldier. Who hath relieved you?
Bernardo has my place. Give you good night.
Hola, Barnardo.
Say, what is Horatio there?
A piece of him.
Welcome, Horatio. Welcome, good Marcellus.
Good, hold again. Ben, okay, I want to point this now. He calls you out. I'll ask the question, how relieved are you that now you have company on the watch?
Especially if he's got Horatio with him as well.
That's
Right?
exactly.
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, this is
So now you're at least all these fears you had about being alone out there.
Yeah.
Wish granted, the two of them are here to keep you company.
Yeah.
Until you find out from Marcellus, that's not as happy as you thought, but
Right.
go from there.
Where from?
Hello, Barnardo.
Hola, Bernardo.
Say, what is Horatio there?
Piece of him.
Welcome, Horatio. Welcome, good Marcellus.
What, has this thing appeared again tonight?
I have seen nothing.
Good.
Her-
Oh, and just so once again, I want to stop you just for a minute, because here's why does Marcellus say, has this thing appeared? He's got to take it off of your fear or of your sense of relief or something you do that he says, what did this
What's going on?
Yeah. And I won't stop anymore. I just wanted to,
Yes, you will, and that's good. It's fine.
okay, let's keep going.
All right. Hola, Bernardo. Sit
Hey,
back up.
what is Horatio there?
A piece of him.
Welcome, Horatio. Welcome, good Marcellus.
What, has this thing appeared again tonight?
I have seen nothing.
Horatio says 'tis but our fantasy, and will not let belief take hold of him, touching this dreaded sight, twice seen of us. Therefore I have entreated him along with us to watch the minutes of this night, that if again this apparition come, he may approve our eyes, and speak to it.
Oh, tush, 'twill not appear.
Sit down a while, and let us once again assail your ears that are so fortified against our story,
Good.
what
Hold-
we
hold
true
again.
knights have seen.
Hold on, Ben, because I want you to do it again. Assail means attack. These men have seen a ghost twice now, and this man in and is skeptical about what they saw. It's almost insulting. It's almost, but to here you are risking coming here at coming here, having to wait alone for them to come. So when he says tush, tush, that word tush, tush, pshaw, he bites you off, tush, tush. You want to say, you're going to listen to me now. So that's why I think assail comes, the meaning of assail is to attack, not to just open up, but to attack your ears. We're going to, and that because he's determined, he's shut you guys down. He's not going to say another word until you let him know what you went through. Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tush, tush, 'twill not appear.
Sit down a while, and let us once again assail your ears that are so fortified against our story, with what we 2 nights have seen.
Well, sit we down, and let us hear Barnardo speak of this.
Last night of all, when yon same star that's westward from the pole hath made his course to illume that part of heaven where now it burns, Marcellus and myself, the bell then beating 1.
Please, break thee off. Look where it comes again.
In the same figure, like the king that's dead.
Thou art a scholar. Speak to it, Horatio.
Looks it not like the king? Mark it, Horatio.
Most like. It harrows me with fear and wonder.
It would be spoke to.
Question it, Horatio.
What art thou that usurps this time of night, together with that fair and warlike form in which the majesty of buried Denmark did sometimes march? By heaven, I charge thee, speak.
It is offended.
See, it stalks away.
Stay, speak. Speak. I charge thee, speak.
Good.
It is
Oh,
gone.
good. Hold on for that because I want to take a look at that. With why does it stalk away? Why does it move away? Heaven. He's brought in,
By heaven.
and that now is the first sign we have of he might be evil, or an evil spirit sent by the devil. So again, this is just, we're going to add this up.
Yeah, even offended. Yeah. Wait, what? How? Whoa. That
Yeah.
one word, that word did it.
Yes.
You did it. That's right.
Something did it, yeah.
The other thing I think that's important, and you did it beautifully, is what happens between the 3 of them. So we have to figure out how to stage it, but you have this sense of secrecy, this sense of fear, and almost as if they don't want, it's what it sounded like, but they almost didn't want the ghost to hear them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
The ghost.
Who knows what it's gonna do?
Yeah.
So that's wonderful. The thing we have to figure out is you have Marcellus and Barnardo, Horatio and Barnardo sitting down. So we look at the globe stage and we ask, where would they have sat? Now, when you have a modern, different design comes in, you can work that out. But what we know we have to accomplish if we leave a sit we down in there is that they need to sit, and that Marcellus is not sitting with them. Marcellus has got to be in a position somewhere so he sees the ghost before they do. Right?
Yeah. Yep.
So that's something we couldn't do, of course, on Zoom, but we would have to look at in
And
terms
maybe
of,
Barnardo doesn't sit down, Annie. Maybe it's Horatio who sits down.
but you're not the royal we.
No.
Well, sit we down and let us hear Barnardo.
Well, yes, but he doesn't necessarily have to. Barnardo doesn't necessarily have to sit down with him.
Why?
Because he can't. He has a story to tell. So maybe Horatio says, come, let's sit down and you tell the story. But he doesn't sit down and he stands anyway.
Okay, we'd have to see it on its feet.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I'm thinking of staging.
I
and
know
where
you
this
are.
would have
I know,
taken
and I'm
place
thinking
on the
of
globe
words.
stage.
I have a quick question about the ghost. It enters, and Marcellus and Barnardo and Horatio have a couple of lines, but then Barnardo says it would be spoke to. What does the ghost do? Does it stop? Does it turn towards them? Does it come closer to them? And why does he interpret that as
It would be
it
spoke.
would be spoke to?
Good question.
Nice question.
And that's exactly what we need to figure out. Where is the ghost? How close is he to them? And
Mhm.
what does, you're right, Larry, that's great.
So
I see
is
Nathan back to visit, or are we done? Oh, Nathan's not there. Never mind. Sorry. Let's go back. Ben?
so yeah, it would be spoke to. What was I trying to ask there? You know, I guess I had been thinking of that as a like it would be good if somebody spoke to it,
Definitely
but
a
I hadn't been
possibility.
taking it as so much of a the ghost looks like it, you know,
Wants to-
until the next one. I've been taking it as, but maybe that's too modern of a take on that. But I was taking it as it would be good if you spoke to it,
idea.
Horatio. You know,
Well, here's the thing I do want to add to the equation is that
mhm.
the new member of this team is Horatio, who that ghost knows.
Mm.
Perhaps the ghost sees Horatio and you see it would be spoke to.
Uh-huh.
Speak to it, Horatio. So it sounds like there's a connection between the ghost and Horatio that happens, but Horatio is so struck with fear and wonder. That's why you say, question it, Horatio. You guys are urging him on, question it,
Yeah.
mark it. But what I love about Horatio's moment is that he is so struck with all of his education, with all of his knowledge of ghosts, the real thing is standing in front of him. And he's seeing it for the first time. You guys have seen it before. So it's a different response that comes from them. But I think, Larry, that might be the connection. It would be spoke to.
So I'm thinking, you know, the ghost enters and Marcellus sees it first. And then Barnardo has the line in the same raiment, the same figure, like
Same
the
figure,
king
right.
is dead. And Marcellus, you know, you're a scholar, Horatio, talk to it. And then Barnardo to Horatio, doesn't it look like the king? Mark it, Horatio. And Horatio seems transfixed by this, what he's seen. It's just like he has all these things going on, fear, wonder. And then Barnardo is like, it would be spoke to. And
Right.
Marcellus again, Horatio, question it.
Yes, and again, I think that's what I liked so much about what they were doing is that sense of Horatio's doing nothing, that and they're dependent on Horatio to do something. That's why they brought him along, you
You're our
know?
Ghostbuster. Come on.
Yeah. So and I think that you're right, Larry, but that's what's happening in this moment of question it, do something. We need you to do something.
Confirm, you know,
Yes.
that's why he said he was bringing Horatio, right? To confirm what we saw and so that you can address it. And it's like,
Yeah.
That's right.
you're a scholar, speak. Doesn't it look like the king? You know,
Yes.
so
And
much
that's
on
where he
Horatio
was,
in
but
that moment.
they
I love it.
already knew, Larry, that he was a scholar. Everybody these guys know, certainly Marcellus knows he's a scholar,
Right.
because they know he's from Wittenberg. And remember, Horatio's visiting. Horatio is not coming home, because he'll tell us later on, I came to see your father's funeral. You know, so Marcellus knows there's a relationship between Marcellus and Horatio, but again, he says earlier, I brought him that he might approve our eyes and speak to it, knowing he has the ability to speak to it that they don't. So yeah, so that's all in place. And I think that what you're describing and what we're heading at is this idea of Horatio doing nothing. So we have the man who, if you know, how many times have you ever seen somebody who brags about knowing something, and then when they're faced with it, they're terrified. And not that Horatio is bragging, but he has this knowledge. But even with that knowledge, it doesn't dismiss the fear that the ghost plants in him, and that's the actor who has to bring that out. All right. So, okay, so then you tell the story, Bernardo, last night of all, and it's specific. That star, you use the word that star and that, but it's in the midst of that Marcellus sees the actual ghost. Where is he coming from? He's not coming from the pit. Not coming from the pit. And I say that because he was let out of hell, he is hellish, at midnight, not at 1. So he's been walking the battlements for that hour until he comes back and then sees you guys there. So wherever you bring him in, you don't have to worry about how does a ghost climb up the stairs to the pit in armor. And how we stage at Lee with you find wherever you're looking in your guard, keeping guard, to see him first. We'd have to establish that on stage.
Sure, it'd be great if it were behind the other two, so that they would have the action of rising and turning or whatever.
Yep.
Well, because there's such a
We'll
great,
blow it up.
hey, I'm going to take you, Horatio, and make you look at the star over here,
Right.
and, you
Right,
can
right.
kind of see Marcellus kind of going,
That's
what's
right.
over, and,
That's
I mean,
right.
there's a great, clear putting two people facing in one direction.
That's right.
Okay. So now
But-
the ghost stays, speak, I charge. Have we gotten there?
Yes. we
Right?
did.
Yes.
And of course, we talked about the colon and the semicolon.
Yep.
And now let's move on from that.
No. Elaborate. Stay, speak, semicolon, speak.
Oh, I thought I was perfectly clear. Smile, Randy. Thank you. Okay. The point of that is Horatio is going to, he wants that ghost to not leave. If the ghost is going to start to leave, he's going to make him stop. Stay, don't go, right? And
You
then
start-
you get that.
The ghost does start to leave.
What?
It is offended. See, it stalks away.
Right.
Horatio says, stay, speak.
Right. So Horatio's first stay is to make the ghost stop. The
Right.
ghost doesn't stop. Speak, colon, which means that Horatio is urgent in having him speak, and it's a long spelling, I believe.
Stay, colon, speak, semicolon.
I know the punctuation is the spelling, speak, long spelling.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
it is.
Thank you.
Both times.
Right. So
All three
what you
times.
get is the move on the first colon, stay, speak. And it's either a verbal movement of energy that says stay, speak, or he moves after it. We don't know. We'll work it out. Either a possible, but it's not stay, speak is my point. It's stay, speak, pulled out. And when he says that, something happens because we have a semicolon. What might happen on the semicolon?
Ghost stops.
And
Or turns to him,
Turns,
stops and
yeah.
turns to him.
And
Yeah.
for a moment,
Maybe
the
gives
audience
them
has
the impression that it may say something, but doesn't.
filled. It's
Inflates or
totally
something.
right
yeah.
on the track. Yes. So you can have this moment of this semicolon saying the ghost stops, looks at Horatio. And remember, we're going to get, now we haven't gotten there, I grant you, but you all know the play. We're going to get to a point where Hamlet's going to ask, was he angry? A countenance more in sorrow than in anger. Was he pale? Yes, very
very
pale.
pale.
So Horatio has to have a good look at that ghost. That might be
So
the
it's
moment
the
that
moment.
he stops, he turns, Horatio sees him, then he starts to go again. And we get another colon. And then we get a capital on charge, right? A colon, and I charge thee, speak. Now he's taking command. He's demanding that the ghost stop. So he's not treating him as a king at all. He's treating him as a spirit that needs to be
An
commanded.
illusion.
Yep. He's not giving the respect of him being a king. And the ghost goes. 'Tis here. Is this the 'tis here, 'tis there?
No, that's
Well,
later.
that's later, right? Okay. So keep going so I can hear the text.
No, that's it. The ghost exits.
Tis
The end.
gone.
Yeah. So we
Tis
can,
gone. Are we
Yeah.
picking up? right.
Why don't we switch cats now, Annie, and
Yeah.
read the scene from the beginning
okay, is Nick around? We should
until this point.
okay. Let's
where the
give Nick
ghost
a chance
exits.
to come in. I think Randy, before you said you'll sit this one out? Or do you want to do
Up
Francisco?
to you. It's up to you.
All right, Larry, sit this one out and then
Okay.
next one we'll take you. Let's take, let's switch around. Nick, take Barnardo. Okay. Randy, you're gonna take Francisco.
Okay.
Lee, you're gonna do Horatio. And Ben, you're gonna do Marcellus.
Gotcha.
Let's see what happens.
Who's there?
Nay, answer me. Stand and unfold yourself.
Long live the king.
Barnardo,
He,
you come most carefully upon your hour.
'tis now struck 12. Get thee to bed, Francisco.
For this relief, much thanks. 'Tis bitter cold, and I'm sick at heart.
Have you had quiet guard?
Not a mouse stirring.
Well, good night. If you do meet Horatio and Marcellus, the rivals of my watch, bid them make haste.
I think I hear them. Stand! Who's there?
Friends to this ground. Oh, I'm sorry. I read the wrong roll.
Oh, Ben.
So sorry.
It was like a chorus.
I think I hear
Sorry,
them.
I apologize.
Randy, take it
I think
again.
I hear them. Stand! Who's there?
Friends to this ground.
And liegemen to the Dane.
Give you good night.
Oh, farewell, honest soldier. Who hath relieved you?
Barnardo hath my place. Give you good night.
Hola, Barnardo.
Say, what, is Horatio there?
A piece of him.
Welcome, Horatio. Welcome, good Marcellus.
What? Has this thing appeared again tonight?
I've seen nothing.
Horatio says 'tis but our fantasy, and will not let belief take hold of him, touching this dreaded sight twice seen of us. Therefore I have entreated him along with us to watch the minutes of this night, that if again this apparition come, he may approve our eyes and speak to it.
Tosh, tosh, 'twill not appear.
Sit down a while, and let us once again assail your eyes that are so fortified against our story, what we 2 nights have seen.
Well, sit we down, and let us hear Barnardo speak of this.
Last night of all, when yon same star that's westward from the pole had made his course to illume that part of heaven where now it burns, Marcellus and myself, the bell then beating 1,
Peace, break thee off. Look where it comes again.
in the same figure, like the king that's dead.
Thou art a scholar. Speak to it, Horatio.
Looks it not like the king? Mark it, Horatio.
Most like. It harrows me with fear and wonder.
It would be spoke to.
Question it, Horatio.
What art thou that usurp'st this time of night, together with that fair and warlike form in which the majesty of buried Denmark did sometimes march? By heaven, I charge thee, speak.
It is offended.
See, it stalks away.
Stay, speak. Speak. I charge thee, speak.
Tis gone.
Okay, good. Okay, I think we're like 5 minutes from ending, so I want to make sure everybody's aware of the time.
Oh,
Our work has begun,
lovely,
Dun, dun, dun.
lovely.
and I think we'll do. Sandy, do you have any feedback, comments, anything you want to say that?
I'm going to say one thing. I am realizing that it has been since probably that first APT one that I have seen a version of Hamlet that had all of this scene on stage, and how important it is because it's a it's a ghost story, and without the first scene, you just don't start it off as a ghost story. So
Yeah.
I am loving being the fly on the wall here.
Great. Nathan's back, so I'm going to turn it over to Nathan. He'll
Okay.
say. But thank you guys. I'm loving working on it. It's wonderful to work with you guys.
So much
Yeah,
fun.
to echo what Sandy said, and Annie, it's amazing how much you can discuss and learn about just these, this opening scene, and even just the first few lines of the opening scene. It's really exciting, and it's been great. Annie, I know, I'm sure as we, figure out this process all together, how you want to integrate if audience has questions or things like that, whether you want them to email you between the weeks, or if people pipe in as they come up, we can kind of talk more about that. But certainly we do want the audience, if you have things that you want to share, that you get a chance to involve yourself in the discussion. And today there was, there's, with the instructions and everything, that's the beautiful part. We have another 6 hours to continue looking at this scene. So there's plenty of time for everybody to get a chance to share their thoughts
Yes.
yeah, absolutely. So no, this is great. I mean, if anybody does have any burning questions, there are a few minutes left in the hour. But yeah, it's just been a wonderful couple hours here.
Yes, I would say that if anyone does have questions, that they, of course, email, text. I don't know what numbers you have of ours, but we of course would love to hear from everyone. And I think as we move forward, I think when we'll probably open it. What I don't want to have happen is for us to get into the weeds of too long arguments about right or wrong. I mean, you can see that even with Randy and I disagree. Ask Nick, he'll tell you. And that's fine, because it is an exploration. But I think we do have to come to an understanding that the thing that will let us know is when we're up on our feet, and that's not going to happen on Zoom, working it to see exactly what needs, what we maybe talk, sans, stit, all of that. I think you've gotten the idea that I will tend to look closely at the text and feed information from that, and add my directorial experience and coaching experience to that. But Randy comes at it as an actor, and that's just so invaluable to an exploration. For me, we taught this at one point. I think it was with Laurie and Doug, who you don't see, but you'll see next week because they're sitting here. And at one point I had made a statement about the play, but I said, now, it could be this, it could be this, it could be this. And Randy said, it's this. And I said, what? That's so absolute. He said, I'm an actor. And in the moment, I have to have only one choice. He can go back and change it later on, but he has to do something out there as an actor and not juggle all of the different meanings that Annie has spent time learning about the line. And I totally appreciate that. And so I think you'll find that through the course of our work, that we'll always get back to what does the actor need, and what is happening in the play circumstantially. So that's, I just don't want us to sort of get into, and I have had this with several scholars, I have to say, arguments about, oh, the folio, really, it's not the authentic, blah, 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 blah. And yet these are people who throw their hat in when it comes to cutting and updating Shakespeare scripts. So I think, well, if you can do that, why can't I depend on the folio? So it's that kind of thing that I just want us to have a good time exploring it and making discoveries every week that we're with it. Okay. Randy, you want to say anything before we say goodnight?
I've had fun.
Yeah.
Fun.
This has been great. Yeah, I hope everybody had a good time, whether you're participating or listening. Again, another fly on the wall over here. It's just you learn so much and realize so much, even in these parts that maybe go by in 30 seconds or a minute. It's just there's so much packed. And Annie, your point that saying the audience may not get these things, but you as the actor, it's so important for you to understand the dynamics and the relationship. So I'm excited to continue just exploring this scene and where we go.
This is make-believe time, like children.
Yeah.
But adults being able to do this make-believe.
Yep.
And Sandy, you're totally right. It's ghost story time.
Yeah.
Right at the top. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you guys all so much for being here this week. We will see you again next week. Excited to to continue the work, and please feel free to send out any questions or whatever if you have them, audience or artists, amongst each other, and we'll try to address those either via email or maybe even bring them up next week. So that's it. Hope you guys have a great rest of your week, rest of your day,
Great
and
seeing
we'll see you back here.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank-
Love a
Bye.
bunch of you.
Bye. Sandy, I'll talk to you.